Lucky Punch Chansey might just be the worst of all the Pokemon that get unique held items in Gen 2. When we compare it to the Light Ball Pikachu or the Thick Club Marowak or even Farfetch'd with its stick, I think that this Pokemon's simply not going to match up. Consider that the Light Ball Pikachu and the Thick Club Marowak were effectively doubling their best offensive stat, and in the case of Farfetch'd with a stick, at least it had a high critical hit chance move in Slash, and because we were using the Baton Pass Farfetch'd from Pokemon Stadium 2, we also had things like Agility and Swords Dance to make that Pokemon actually pretty serviceable, even without having to rely on a crazy number of critical hits. But Chansey doesn't get any of that. It comes into the game with the worst attack stat in the entire game, and after the special split from Gen 1, it's not like its special attack is really all that much to write home about. Only 35 base special attack, and combining that with its absolutely abysmal defense and its really meh speed, we're basically not going to be able to damage opponents. Like, is a crit even going to make a massive difference in this one? I have trouble seeing it working, though we do have one advantage in the fact that we are in the fast level up group. Now, one thing that is similar between this Lucky Punch Chansey and the Light Ball Pikachu are that they were both only available via trade ups from Gen 1. So it does make sense that we should give this Chansey moves that would be available to it in Gen 1, but not in Gen 2, at least not normally. And I think there's a decent list of moves that we can actually give it that will fit the Lucky and Punch themes. Starting on the lucky side, we can give this Pokemon Metronome, which, while it was an egg move in Gen 2, is also a TM move in Gen 1. And we can give it Psywave, a move that will not rely on our abysmal stats and simply depend on our level. And being in the fast level up group, we could get situations where Psywave actually does decent damage, maybe? Then on the punch side, we are going to give our Chansey Mega Punch, a move that was available both in Mount Moon in Gen 1 as well as in the Celadon department store, so it's very easy to get for a meme run like this, even if you wanted to set it up legitimately. And I'm going to give it access to Counter. Counter might be one of the single most improved moves between Gen 1 and Gen 2, because in Gen 1, Counter only worked against normal and fighting type moves, whereas here in Gen 2, we can use it against a wide array of physical attacks. And with our terrible defense but super high HP, Counter might actually turn out to be a really strong move, fitting again with the punching theme. As your opponent hits you with a strong attack, you return a Lucky Punch counter. I think that this could actually be really, really good. But even with these moves, is this going to be enough to make Lucky Punch Chansey anywhere near as good as what we were just dealing with the other 3 unique held item Pokemon? Or is this Chansey going to struggle throughout the entire run? There's only one way to find out, so let's get into it. So as we go into Professor Elm's lab to claim what might be the most luck-based Pokemon in the history of the franchise, we're gonna have to hope that we can get the luck in the right spots in order to be able to win. Now, I'm actually gonna take my Chansey to go up against the Totodile team because we have really high special defense, so it's not like Razor Leaf would do that much to us. I think we'll take more damage overall by being up against more of a physical attacker, but let's just see how it actually works out. So we will get our Chansey, and his name is Fat Chance because I think it's a fat chance that we're actually going to be able to win this on minimum battles, but who knows? It might just turn out to be possible. Our Chansey is coming in with max DVs, same as the other ones in this series, with the Lucky Punch as a held item, Mega Punch, Counter, Psywave, and Metronome, effectively giving us some lucky ways to win and some punchy ways to win. Let's just see how this actually goes. I mean, we will learn new moves as we go through. I'm sure Psywave will fall off when we get to Soft Boiled, but maybe not. I mean, we need a good way to take down ghosts, and that could be a problem. Like, either we're metronoming to get the right move to take out a ghost, or we're going to be really going for some like Psywave luck in order to get it. I'm not sure what is actually the best, and we do not get access to any special moves until really late in this run, especially because I'm doing this as a full game solo run. I can't just justify like, oh yeah, you'd eventually get all the coins at the casino. If we're gonna get the casino coins in order to get something like Fire Blast or Blizzard, we're gonna have to do it legitimately in this one. Pokemon, and that could really hurt. For now though, we are going to simply take on Rival 1 and let's just see how this fight goes. Now obviously we could go for Mega Punch here, but I actually think the better strategy is to go for Counter. He scratches and we can see Counter, because of our low defense and high HP, does massive damage here, so just 2 scratches is enough to allow us to just knock out the Totodile with counters, and that is likely going to be one of my main strats in this entire run, at least as long as we're up against anything that's using physical moves. Now, of course, we know based on the lore that our rival has to be Giovanni, and there's not enough like characters to do it, so I'm gonna have to do just one N to make him Giovanni. But based on the lore, we know the Lucky Punch Chansey punched Giovanni into oblivion, and that is the actual reason this Pokemon exists. But with that being done, we can now make our way out into the world. We're going to go up and take on, of course, Falkner first. I think that the counter strats are going to be enough there. We'll just have to see. Now, in general, I will be doing this with wild Pokemon off, other than to get the wild Centret that I need here on the first route in order to use as an HM Pokemon. And we'll be going as quick as I can through the game. I will try to stay on minimum battles as much as I can, but if it looks unreasonable at any point, I will start grinding extra levels. Now, the only saving grace I think that our Pokemon has is being in that fast level up group, which means it will gain levels faster than any of these other unique held item Pokemon that we've done so far. That means that we'll also reach red at the end of the game at a significantly higher level than those Pokemon, and that could give us a serious advantage at that point, especially because we might actually be running some decent moves by that point in the game. Of course, in our level up moveset, the only things that I can think of that we would actually want to learn are things like Soft Boiled and Sing. I'm going to probably skip Minimize in this one, even though it is a luck-based strategy. I'd like to find a reasonable way to get through. Anyway, we have made it to Falkner's gym, where I'm going to take on Honest Abe, and I think the only strategy is to counter, and it is a one-hit KO on the first Spearow. Oh, we took so much damage from its peck that we're simply able to destroy it with a single counter. Why did they make Gen 1 where counter didn't work against anything other than normal and fighting type moves? It makes no sense. The fact that they buffed it in Gen 2 actually makes this move legit. And as we completely destroy Rod as well, we are now ready to go into the fight with Falkner himself. And I think counter strats are the way to go here. Let's just see how it goes. So Falkner attempt number 1, he leads off with Pidgey, of course. I'm going to go counter. He tackles. This is going to allow us to knock him out in 2 hits. We gain a level to get to level 9 here as we go to the Pidgeotto. We could learn Tail Whip. We're not going to learn Tail Whip. There's no reason to use that move here, I don't think. So instead, we get gusted by Pidgeotto and we nearly one-shot it with the counter. We'll get it the next turn, and just like that, level 10, we defeat Falkner on the first attempt. Counter is kind of OP on a Chansey, I'm just gonna say. And with that, we can now progress in the game. Counter is also going to be pretty good, I think, against the Bugsy fight. So, you know, if he's building up Fury Cutter, we'll just be sitting here countering it. The real issue that we're going to face is rival number 2 with his Ghastly. He can't damage us, but we're going to be stuck with either Metronome or using the Psywave in order to get through that. So we will get to Soft Boiled before that, so we can also get a healing move, but we're going to have to hope that either the Metronome or the Psywave is enough there. We got to look ahead to Morty. Morty might actually be the problem, and while I put it on here for memes, Mega Punch might actually be the first move that has to go from our moveset, just because it's not really that useful to us. First things first though, we've got to follow Kurt down into the well, and you know, he can take an arrow in the knee as we start taking on all of these rockets. Now, interestingly, Mega Punch is doing decent enough damage here to get us through these opponents with reasonable consistency, so we've made it to Jamesy Proton with no issues, but let's see how this fight actually goes. I am coming in a little bit unhealed, but I think counter is the play. We do half damage just after a single Smog, then he tackles, allowing us to get the easy victory and get to level 13. We get to learn Soft Boiled, and I'm going going to learn Soft Boiled over Mega Punch. I do think this is the best play. Even though Mega Punch is quite strong, we're going to get better normal type moves as we continue, so I think this move can go. And now Kurt will come in to see the damage that we wrought on Team Rocket, and he's going to say, all right, you're good to go. Go take on Bugsy. And I am going to take on Bugsy's gym before I even attempt rival number 2. And after beating the randos in the gym that are required, we are now at level 14 as we go into the Bugsy fight. We know all of his Pokemon use only physical moves, so I think counter strats are going to be perfectly fine here, but let's just see how it goes. So first up against the Metapod, it goes Harden turn 1, but that actually shouldn't affect our damage, I don't think, from counter. I'm pretty sure the damage is just dependent on how much he does to us, so we knock him out in 4 hits. Kakuna's out next. It also goes Harden, but we're going to go for our counters here. When we get on low health, we will go for Soft Boiled just to heal up since we are in fact poisoned. In fact, I will make sure to do one more Soft Boiled here before we get to the Scyther that is coming out last. I just want to be as close as possible to full health, and then we can knock this Pokemon out. We get to level 15 as the Scyther comes out. It goes Fury Cutter. We go for the counter, and as Fury Cutter builds, we knock it out in just 2 counters, easily destroying Bugsy on the first attempt and getting to level 16. So once again, counter proves to be kind of OP. It's kind of the strongest move that you could put on the Chansey at this point, and I think it at least gives us a chance in this next fight. Let's just see how it actually goes though against the rival. So rival 2 attempt number 1 here. I'm going to lead off, of course, with the Psywave on the Ghastly. I mean, it could put us to sleep. It really doesn't matter. It can't do anything to us. Psywave, of course, is not going to do massive damage, but I'm not too worried if he uses a bunch of Spite on this move, because if we run out of PP, we'll just use something else later on. So fortunately, we take that Pokemon down. Out comes the Zubat, and I think the best play that we have here is to go Metronome, because Leech Life isn't going to do that much, and we can't counter Bite, because Bite is a special move. Instead, we Metronome Rest and then go for the Poison Sting. Now Super Fang, that's actually a legit move. We get Spikes, which is not ideal. Powder Snow was pretty decent, and now Spark will finish off the Zubat. That brings out the Croconaw, which is affected by Spikes here. That's kind of nice. And we're going to go counter after it's Scratch and another Scratch. We simply destroy him. Nice and easy. We could learn Double Slap. We will not learn Double Slap. That is a trash move. But for now, we're progressing nicely on minimum battles. But I think counter is the main reason for that. I don't expect this to change in the Whitney section, just given the fact that she's also going to be using physical moves. I mean, it kind of depends on what the Clefairy metronomes, but I think we're going to have a decent chance of getting through without too much difficulty in this next gym. And up to this point, I honestly don't think there's any reason why we need to get any new moves on our moveset. I will pick up items though, because I'm going to start selling them early in order to get access to potentially a strong Game Corner TM later on in this run. I think that could be really, really important. And here we actually Metronome transform to turn it into the Super Nerd's Voltorb, but because we have such high HP, we're actually here able to struggle these Pokemon down, which is kind of hilarious when you consider that the only stat that doesn't change when you transform is, of course, the HP stat. So transform on a Chansey would actually be super OP, given that in Gen 2, Struggle can hit everything neutrally. That could be a really fun run to try someday, is a Chansey with only transform. Now, of course, if we could learn elemental punches here, I would slap those on immediately, given the fact that they're thematic anyway. But unfortunately, Chansey doesn't get access to elemental punches in this generation, which is kind of terrible. Like, how are you supposed to be a Lucky Punch Chansey when you never get punches? Basically, until Dynamic Punch in this game, we'll probably end up having to use that move just for a meme at some point, but we'll just have to see. For now, we're going to get into Whitney's gym, where I don't think we're going to have too much issue, provided our opponents use the right moves. And after an easy fight against Scary Carry, it's time for Whitney herself. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to try to counter on the Clefairy. It does double slap, so we do actually get to deal some damage, and then it's going to mimic our counter and use counter against us. This is unacceptable, so I'm going to use takedown instead, and now fire spin, which is perfectly fine, I guess. We're going to soft boiled whenever we're on low HP. We get Iron Tail this time. And honestly, Psywave might just be the fastest way to take that Pokemon down. Now against the Miltank, it goes Stomp and flinches me, allowing it to KO me the next turn. I think a single Stomp, if we had managed to counter, would have been enough to just one-shot this Pokemon though. So I'm gonna take a reset right here and just see how this goes. The next attempt, we've been paralyzed by a Thunder Wave, but I am going to be able to get through this Clefairy eventually with Psywave here. That brings out the Miltank once again. It goes Rollout this time, and we finally counter the Rollout on the third turn with 19 HP remaining, but it was a one-hit KO. Thanks to the buildup of that move, we completely destroy Whitney on the second attempt. So honestly, Rollout or Stomp, I think either of them, as long as we don't get a flinch, we are able to knock out that Pokemon pretty easily with the counter there, and we are able now to move on in the game. But this brings us to the part that I think is possibly going to be the hardest for this Pokemon so far. That's going to be Morty's gym, because we're going to be stuck in a situation where we don't really have any good moves to use here unless we want to go rollout strats. But we already saw in the minimum battle series that rollout for Morty really didn't do that much for us, at least not with Chansey's paltry 5 base attack. So I think we're going to need to go a different way, probably metronome strats or Psywave strats in order to get through there, but we're not going to have anything that's really good for knocking out those Pokemon before they curse us, and that could make this section really, really tough. And it's worth noting, we might actually want to have something like the amulet coin in order to be able to get more money, but because this is a Lucky Punch Chansey run, we are not allowed to change our held item from the Lucky Punch, which means we're just going to have to hope that something else works. I'm also not going to be going attract strats in this one. I don't think that that's a fair strategy here. I may save that for a 0 DVs run down the line. Attract could be really overpowered given that Chansey is always a female, even on max DVs, but I'm going to put that strategy in my back pocket and only use it if I'm absolutely desperate and nothing else works. But for now, let's just stay as close as we can to minimum battles. I will pick up some random items that I might need in order to just sell to get some money. Let's see how we actually do against the Kimono Girls and rival number 3 here, now that we're actually going to face up against Curse. Now, we could learn Minimize via level up, but again, I said I'm not going to go with this move in this one, just because while it is lucky, I don't think that I'm going to rely on that level of luck to try to get through. I want to see if we can actually find a reasonable strategy for progressing through these fights. Now, in the minimum battle series, I already know Chansey went down to the lighthouse, but of course it didn't have this moveset. It was rocking more like Pound at that point, and I think we ended up going for some Game Corner TMs with that Pokemon if I recall correctly. Here, however, we do have Psywave to hit ghosts. We already have Soft Boiled. There are at least some theoretical ways that we could win a fight here, so let's just get into the rival fight and see how it goes. Now, the first thing that I think we want to do is Metronome here to try to get a decent move for this Haunter. Leech Seed isn't terrible here, nor is Sandstorm, but we're going to need to heal up here if we're going to have any shot with our Soft Boiled, especially since Sandstorm is doing a lot of damage here. Still, we do manage to take out that first Pokemon. We can heal up here against the Magnemite. It misses a Sonic Boom, but that could be our ticket to getting through this one. Sonic Boom, of course, is a physical move, and so we nearly one-shot there. We're going to have to stick with the healing, though, in between in order to just have enough HP to have any shot here. And then we can just Psywave that one down from that level. The Zubat, I'm going to go for Metronome. We get Bubble, which is absolutely not what I was looking for. Ember also isn't very good, and we're going to get destroyed on this first attempt from the looks of things as Curse simply takes us down. Still, I think this one might be possible, so I'm going to try this just a couple more times to see, and maybe we get the right kind of move here. This time we transform into the Haunter, which is terrible because we're not actually going to have good moves against the rest of the team, and we lose our ability to use Soft Boiled, so we really just don't have any shot here once we transform via the Metronome. So the transform only run, I think, is probably worse than what we're already running here. This time we get through the Haunter on much better health, though. That's going to bring us to the Magnemite, where we're just not getting getting the right metronome moves, but still this one should be possible with a counter, especially if it can actually hit a sonic boom, but we're gonna have to manage our HP effectively to have any shot here. The problem is that it's hitting sonic boom when we're not using counter, and then it's not using sonic boom when we do use counter, so we once again end up using up all of our PP in soft boiled, and now we need it to sonic boom, but instead it goes for supersonic, and we're definitely losing this attempt. So I'm gonna try Psywave here on the Magnemite instead, just hoping to knock it out quickly. I actually do this time. Now we can go for the soft boiled to recover against the Zubat. Leech Life obviously will not do that much, but now we get confused, which is kind of bad because hitting ourselves in confusion means that it actually can knock us out after the curse damage. But honestly, these first couple Pokemon, it might just be better to go for the Psywave here in order to knock them out more consistently. And even for Zubat, Psywave might actually be the play as long as we can keep our HP up high enough. The downside of Psywave, of course, is accuracy, so I've already missed like 3 Psywaves on this Zubat, so it was able to confuse me again, but I haven't hit myself in confusion. So we've got to take small victories, I guess, and it just does not work. But of course, the damage from Psywave does depend on our level, so it makes sense to go to the Lighthouse to at least gain an additional level here, and that may enable us to get a better range in certain spots, and thus get the win where we're currently failing, though I think more likely the losses were coming just from the fact that the move kept missing. So after gaining the 1 additional level there in the Lighthouse, we're also very close to getting to level 25, so we should at least get better ranges as we get deeper into this fight against rival number 3. Let's see if we can actually get it to go with this moveset though, or are we going to need to go for something else? We get back to the Zubat as we were before, and of course now we're going to have to kind of get into a soft-boiled loop in order to keep enough HP to actually attack against this Pokemon. Leech Life is kind of putting in work here as well. Counter, however, will allow us to do decent damage against that Leech Life, so that might be the strategy here. Still, it's incredibly tedious, so I think a Metronome or Psywave is actually going to be the way to go if we can just actually get a good move. But in spite of the fact that we have no accuracy drops, we just keep missing every Metronome move I try to use against this Zubat, it feels like. Like, we're the opposite of a lucky Pokemon. Here we finally land Cross Chop, which does nothing, of course. So I'm thinking that this fight might turn out to be too hard. We might actually have to go somewhere else. This time we finally get through the Zubat to the Croconaw. It's taken a ton of attempts, and now we actually need to heal up because the Croconaw could just do too much damage to us with Rage here, and we really don't want to see Bite, so we're just hoping that it will use Rage and allow us to counter it over and over again. This time he does use Rage. We build his Rage, so he rages again, and we finally get the victory against rival number 3. It took a total of like 18 attempts there, I think, in order to get that one to go. Between before we went to the Lighthouse and after we went to the Lighthouse, that one is definitely not consistent. The problem is that there's not really a better move for us to get access to here. Like, you're not really going to get much advantage by going Rollout, I don't think there. Headbutt, yet again, I don't think is going to do that much given that we are not very physically strong. And all of the special moves that we could get here are not going to be very good either, outside of going for Hidden Power Dark. That might honestly have been the correct strategy, and that might be what I have to do for Morty right here in order to just have any reasonable chance of getting through here. I guess we're lucky enough to get a good hidden power typing that we can actually use against this gym leader. So I'm not going to waste time. I'm going to go get access to that because honestly, that's the only way that I think we're going to have any shot in this gym. Now, as usual, I could also go rare candies, but I'm going to avoid those until they're absolutely necessary. We did use some rare candies before Lance with the Thick Club Marowak, for example, but honestly, in general, I will avoid rare candies until red because otherwise you're at such a disadvantage at the late game that it just isn't very good. Still, we have now picked up Hidden Power Dark, and I think it is our only good strategy here. So I'm going to simply add this move on to Fat Chance, and we're going to put it on over Psywave. Psywave has been kind of serviceable up to this point, but it's just too random, I feel, to actually stay on our moveset long term. So Hidden Power Dark it is. We now have a special move that will actually do decent damage, but then won't help us much in the upcoming gyms. So I think this is a kind of reasonable compromise as far as getting the move. It does at least use our meh special attack and deals damage based on the fact that we are at a higher level than these Pokemon. So I think this is actually going to give us a decent shot of getting through this gym at least, but we're gonna already have to kind of say it's a little unreasonable. You're gonna need a little bit of luck to get through with this Chansey. Definitely wanting those DVs to get that Hidden Power Dark here. And fortunately, Hidden Power Dark is enough to destroy all of the randos in the gym. So it's just about Morty himself. And this might be a little bit random, but I think we at least have a decent shot here. We would love to throw on a Mint Berry to avoid the Hypnosis, but again, that is not going to be allowed in this one. So we're just going to have to see if our current moveset is enough. So Morty attempt number 1, we're going Hidden Power on the first Ghastly. It is a 1-hit KO. Out comes the Haunter. We hit it with Hidden Power. It's not a one-hitter, and it curses against us. Now we've got to dodge some Hypnosis here. We get the first Hypnosis miss, and it looks like Hidden Power Dark is going to be a 3-hit KO on the Gengar. Now it does land Hypnosis. That's basically game over unless we wake up. We did not, so we lose. So we're going to need 3 Hypnosis misses in a row, which is pretty luck-based. It's not like the most luck-based thing we've ever gone for, given the fact that the AI is less than 50-50 to land Hypnosis because they have an additional 25% chance to miss, but it's going to require some luck or a critical hit like that in order to get through. Now we can level up to level 29 and learn Sing. I'm going to learn this move over Metronome. I'm going to run with Hidden Power and Counter as my moves so that hopefully I can manage to get through some opponents, but Sing strats might be what we actually need in order to progress in the game, because at least we'll get our opponents asleep and have a chance to then knock them out. So we do manage to get through Morty with the Hidden Power Dark there. Still not perfectly consistent, but possible. But now with our Chansey, I think we need all the levels that we can get to have any reasonable chance of progressing here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to the Rocket Hideout first and just see what that does for our ranges. I'm very hopeful that maybe, just maybe, we'll gain enough levels to make some of these fights look reasonable after we start, of course, spamming the sleep strategies in order to put things to sleep and let us just whittle them down after that. Now, of course, we're going to have to catch this red Gyarados as usual in my runs so that we can use it as an HM Pokemon. I am going to put it to sleep and then try to whittle it down a little bit so that hopefully we can actually catch it reasonably here. We finally catch it after it knocks out like half of the team here, and we can come talk to Lancey Boy, who's going to say, hey, let's go investigate and let's see if our fat Chance can find its way through this next section. Now, the overlay is showing 1 optional battle, but there are actually no optional battles taken so far in this one. That's probably a glitch from somewhere in the run, because I definitely haven't fought anything optional. We have added on the TM. We do have 18 resets up to this point as we come into the Rocket Hideout. And this is a Pokemon against whom this Jed fight could actually be really, really hard. We're hoping that he goes for Sonic Boom and allows us to counter him, but if instead he goes for Thunder Shock, there's not really anything that we can do. Still, after 1 counter, we can then just easily knock him out with a Hidden Power, so that's basically my strat here. Now, he does attack completely randomly. We do also have the advantage compared to the Rival 3 fight that we're not cursed, so we do at least survive a lot more turns here. So really, this fight's just a bit random. There's not much that we can do to make it less random than this, but at least sleep is a strategy here. So we actually get through that fight on the first attempt thanks to some well-timed soft-boileds, plus being able to use the counter on those Pokemon when they use Tackle or Sonic Boom, which is a 50-50 shot. So we managed to get through and move on to the lower level. These other rockets in here, though, I don't actually expect to be all that hard. They're mostly using physical moves that we can counter nicely, and we're at a high enough level that we're not really at risk of getting knocked out, so I think these fights are going to be pretty easy overall. And sure enough, with no difficulty whatsoever, we've made it to the final executive here in the Rocket Hideout. And I think this is going to be a reasonably easy fight, but let's see how it actually goes. So attempt number 1 here against this executive. I'm going to go for the counter against the Arbok. It's going to go Poison Sting. It does get the poison on me as well, but we knock it out in 2 hits with the counter. Gloom is out next. I'm going to go for the Hidden Power Dark here as it absorbs against me, but of course we can use Soft Boiled if we get on low enough health and just knock that Pokemon out. That brings out the Murkrow, which I think is going going to go Peck here, and it does, which allows me to just counter and get the one-hit KO. So that was a super easy victory there as we completely destroy Team Rocket. So now, as usual, I'm going to use a separate Pokemon in order to take out these electrodes. So now we've got a Gyarados, also named Fat Chance. Let's see how this fight actually goes here. Of course, Gyarados can tank self-destructs, but it can also dish out a lot of damage with Thrash, allowing us to pretty easily get through this section without getting additional XP on our main Pokemon, which is all I'm really going for here. We're just trying to stay on minimum XP as long as possible. And honestly, outside of the Rival 3 fight, nothing has been that inconsistent up to this point in the run. But with that section done, I'm now going to come into Pryce's gym because I expect him to be the easiest of the gym leaders that we have coming up here. So it might just be a situation where we're able to get the victory nice and easy here and at least get some badge boosts. I'm not sure if they'll actually calculate in or not based on our stats currently. There's some glitch in Gen 2 where the badge boost from the Glacier badge only works in a certain range of stats. And I need somebody to tell me in the comments exactly what that range is. But let's just test this out, of course, against good old Pryce and see how this fight actually goes. Now, he knows Headbutt, Icy Wind, Aurora Beam, and Rest. I'm hoping that he goes Headbutt here. Instead, he goes Icy Wind. Now he Headbutts, though, and that allows me to counter and do really good damage. The problem is that he seems to not take enough damage that he will get KO'd. So I'm going to switch into Hidden Power to knock that Pokemon out. Now, Dugong is going Headbutt. It's getting some flinches on me, though, which is terrible, and that means that it simply knocks me out after flinching me 3 turns in a row. Let's try this one again. Now, it seems like this Seal really likes to go Icy Wind turn 1, and then after that, it just goes into Headbutt. So I'm just going to take this opportunity to heal up and then start countering again once it wakes up. And of course, he likes to rest when he's on low health. So I think 2 Hidden Powers while he's asleep and then going back in the counter when he wakes up is the way to knock that Pokemon out nice and easy. Dugong just goes for a Headbutt, it seems. So as long as we can get the range here, we should be good. Again, this looks like maybe a couple of Hidden Powers into the counter is the way to go here. Sure enough, that does get the KO. That brings out the final Piloswine. It goes Fury Attack. We counter. It didn't do that much damage though, so I'm actually going to put this Pokemon to sleep. It's not like this one knows rest, so we actually, I think, gain a pretty big advantage by sleeping this Pokemon and then just going into our Hidden Power. Hidden Power is not doing a lot of damage, but it is slowly whittling this one down. He does have a Hyper Potion, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to do something here to this Pokemon. Now he's going for Blizzard. We're going to have to put him back to sleep and heal up real quick, but he does not have any healing left. So this is just a war of attrition. We've got our final 4 Hidden Powers. We get a nice critical hit there and then knock him out the next turn. So Pryce goes down on, I think the second attempt was that, but really not too bad. Pryce still kind of a joke, even with this Chansey. But now we need to decide how to route, and I'm actually thinking that we might have a better shot against Jasmine than Chuck. Here's my logic. We currently know the move Sing, and I think we're going to be faster than the Magnemites. So as long as both of the Magnemites get put to sleep, we should, in theory, maybe be able to knock them out with a bunch of Hidden Powers. Then, again, this is just my theory, the Steelix will probably use Iron Tail against us, and we'll be able to use Counter in order to deal massive damage back to it and potentially get through that way. I think it's at least worth a test, so let's just get in and see if it will actually go. Otherwise, there are still some randos inside of Chuck's gym to fight to gain some additional levels, and I think that the counter strats will be really overpowered there, basically against everything except the Hitmonchan, so that may be the way to just gain some extra levels and then go back and try the 2 gym leaders again. What I'm really scared of though is that Dynamic Punch from Poliwrath might just one-shot me even from full HP, and that would be terrible. And currently we're sitting at about 56,000 Pokédollars at this point, and that's obviously not anywhere close to enough to get us access to something like Fire Blast or Blizzard. We could go deep diving into some caves in order to get access to more items to sell for money though, so I will also keep that in my pocket as a potential way to get access to a stronger move if these gym leaders prove impossible. Anyway, first up, let's at least test out the Jasmine fight. We're we're already faster than this Magnemite, so I'm going to try to sing and put it to sleep. Let's see what Hidden Power does here. Like really, really little. That was 12 damage. So this is like a 6-hit KO with Hidden Power. We're going to need that Lucky Punch to give us some crits here, I think. We do manage to get through the first Magnemite though. That brings out the second one. Unfortunately, we miss and then it goes Thunder Wave on us. But Thunderbolt really won't do that much to us. So this could still be a situation where we're fine, even with the Thunder Wave on. We get a couple of nice crits as well, but now we're getting on lower health from the Thunderbolt. So I'm going to try to sing and then soft boiled to recover HP, because I think we're going to need a lot of HP for that Steelix. Still, we managed to knock out the Magnemite, so we're going to the Steelix at level 34 on decent health, 200 HP remaining. Let's see if we can counter it. It hits the Iron Tail, which does massive damage, but then counter one-shots, so we defeat Jasmine on the first attempt. Oh, counter is just way too powerful. That is clearly what, a Lucky Punch is actually supposed to be. Come on. Seriously, we're not even trying to like actually land physical moves. We're just using their physical moves against them, and the fact that we have no defense and massive HP, it actually works out. Still, the fact that that Iron Tail did that much damage to us makes me think Dynamic Punch, if it hits, just wrecks this Pokemon. I'm really scared going into Chuck's gym, but we just have to go here. There's nowhere else to go on minimum battles, so let's see how this goes. First up, of course, we've got to take on the Black Belt Bros. We've got Hitmonlee. We know its moves are going to do massive damage, but counter will one-shot there. That brings out the Hitmonchan next, and it doesn't have any strong physical moves. It's using 3 elemental punches and then Comet Punch. So I'm going to put this Pokemon to sleep. I'm going to take the chance to heal up real quick, and then let's go into our Hidden Powers. Obviously, Hidden Power Dark is not going to be very strong here, but I think it's the best that we've got against this Hitmonchan. It's just spamming all of the elemental punches, but that allows us to simply knock that Pokemon out and get to level 35. We could learn Egg Bomb. Egg Bomb is kind of interesting. It is kind of a signature move, but I'm not going to go for that here. I think that our current moveset is basically the best that we can do for the current moment. I do think our counter strats are going to end when we get to Claire though, because like Claire's not going to use physical moves against us. At least I don't think. Unfortunately, with Sing, we're able to get to Chuck. We had one reset on Lung here and one reset on Knob here, but really it wasn't too bad getting through these randos, but it does make me really scared for the gym leader, because like, what are we going to do? He's going to hit so hard. I think we might be able to outspeed against the Poliwrath. I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact speed of that Pokemon. If we do, then sleep strats all the way. That's what we're going for, but let's see how this actually goes. So Chucky Boy, of course, is going to lead off with his Primeape, which is actually slower. Still, I'm going to try to go for the counter here. He Karate Chops, which should be a one-hit KO. Sure enough, it is. That brings out the Poliwrath, which is slower than us, but hits the Dynamic Punch and just completely destroyed me in one hit. So yeah, we're going to have to actually land the sleep here if we're going to have any shot, I think. Next attempt, we even get Leered, which is, I think, even worse here. But then we only get Fury Swipes from the Primeape, so we do survive there. We managed to Sing against Poliwrath. We're going to heal up here. He goes for the full heal. Okay. Now we can put him back to sleep with Sing again, though. Let's see what Hidden Power Dark does. Oh, it does nothing. 10 damage, meaning that this is a 10-hit KO. We're going to need some misses here from that Dynamic Punch if we're going to get through. We get a Dynamic Punch miss there as he wakes up. He hits the next one, and from full health, it is still a one-hit KO. So we're going to need a better move here than Hidden Power, I think, if we're going to get through this one. Now, it is worth noting there was a Leer on us in that one, so it's possible that we don't get one-shot by a non-critical hit Dynamic Punch if he doesn't have the Leer. I still think that's asking an awful lot here, but with a single Leer, our defense is just way too low and we get destroyed. Still, I'm going to reset here just a couple times to see if we can get a run where we don't have the Leer, because it might be a situation where without Leer, we actually survive and we can simply return the damage with counter and get the easy victory. So I'm going to just test this a couple more times. Now, one way to try to avoid that Leer, of course, is to put the Primeape to sleep and then try to go for our counters, we can simply knock it out after that. The AI is typically more likely to use status moves turn 1, which is why that strategy can work. So now we've made it to the Polyrath without any leers on. I'm gonna just spam counter from here. Of course, it's asleep, but I'm just hoping that it will actually try to, hit me with Dynamic Punch. We actually survived the Dynamic Punch without the leer. That's all I wanted to see. We did get put to sleep here, so obviously we're losing this one, but we actually wake up and use the counter and win. Oh, Chucky boy, he never stood a chance against the counter. The Dynamic Punch gets countered and we win. That was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. Oh, all I can say is Fat Chance is actually turning out to be better than I thought. But I think we can also say up to this point that it has a lot less to do with crits and a lot more to do with just how OP counter has become in Gen 2. And when you consider that there's a ridiculous number of Pokemon that can learn counter in Gen 1, it makes me feel like if we just threw counter on a ton of Pokemon, they would be able to easily make their way through Gen 2 on minimum battles. We may have actually found a situation where a Gen 1 trash move becomes like, S tier in Gen 2. So it took a little bit of work, but we are able to get to the top of the radio tower on minimum battles to fight this executive. This fight could actually be hard though, because I found that self-destruct from a coughing was enough to just one-hit KO me. Self-destruct, of course, also, I believe cuts the defense of the target in half, which is why it's so incredibly overpowered here. So I think against these coughings, we actually need to go sing strats and then hopefully hidden power them down. So this fight's not exactly going to be consistent. It's going to take a little bit of luck to actually get this one to go. Now against the Wheezing, I think we're really hoping not to get Explosion, but anything else we should be able to counter and do really good damage. Sure enough, we do, and then hidden power can just finish that one off. So we've got just these last couple coughings, and then we should have a chance to get through this one. I do think we have to keep our HP nice and high though if we're going to get through this one on this attempt, just because a lucky self-destruct could end the run. Fortunately, the last coughing does not know self-destruct, so now we can just go for counter strats, and this should be an easy victory here. So not consistent, but definitely possible as long as you don't get any misses from Sing in the wrong spots. And now with that section done, it's time to go take on rival number 4. This could be a really tough fight, but we're just going to have to see if we can get it to go. So rival 4 attempt number 1, he leads off with the Golbat here. We are, however, faster, so I'm going to go for the Sing strat here, and let's just see what hidden power does. It does about a quarter here, 26 damage on that first hit, so a 4-hit KO if I'm doing my math correctly. We get a nice critical hit turn 2, so we get it down in 3 turns actually. Magnemite comes out next. We obviously want to put this Pokemon to sleep. I don't really want to get Thunder Waved if I can avoid it. And this one we did 16 damage, so this is also looking like a 4-hit KO without a crit, but then we get a crit yet again. Lucky Punch is starting to do a little bit of work for us. On the Haunter, I think we just go straight for the Hidden Power Dark. It's not a 1-hit KO as he curses, so that's kind of sad to see. I'm going to skip Defense Curl here. I may go for a Defense Curl rollout strat later on in the run, but for now I'm going to skip it. I know that I can get the TM for that anyway. That brings out Sneasel here, and I think it's going to go Quick Attack, so I'm going to go for the counter right there in order to deal more damage. Sure enough, it's just a simple 2-hit KO, and now for Alligator, I think it goes Rage? It does. And as we build up its rage, I think we're going to be able to knock this Pokemon out, but unfortunately Curse gets us down first. So we definitely need to avoid that Curse if at all possible. So next attempt here, since I can see that Golbat is going to go for the wing attack there, I'm just going to counter once and then Hidden Power Dark it down. This time we get paralyzed by the Magnemite, which is like the worst result here. So we're probably losing this attempt if I have to guess. And that of course guarantees that we're going to be slower than the Haunter here when we want to go for a Hidden Power. So definitely not ideal up to that point. Still, I'm going to just take this opportunity to heal up a little bit, and then we'll go back into our counters on the Sneasel. Once again, knowing that it's basically a 2-hit KO here, but I want to be on really good green health when I go to the final Croconaw. He even uses a Leer on me, which means that now the physical moves will do more damage, but that should also mean that we end up doing more to him with our counters. Still, we didn't manage to move, so we get knocked out on that attempt. So I think the really key spot is to actually get the sleep here on the Magnemite. We get a nice critical hit yet again, so we knock it out in 3 turns. That brings out the Haunter, which we are faster than. We missed the Sing though. I think we have to hit Sing on Haunter here as well and avoid the curse, and then we're basically good to go. So back to the Haunter on the next attempt. This time we do land Sing, so now we just needed to stay asleep while we hidden power it down. It's an easy 2-hit KO. So this time we're through with no curse as we get to the Sneasel, and now I think it's just smooth sailing. I will take a quick heal just because I can, but now we will counter against its critical hit quick attack, allowing us to get a 1-hit KO. Now Feraligatr goes Rage, we go counter. He's just going to stick with the Rage here, and that's going to let us knock him out in 2 more turns. So just like that, we can beat rival number 4. It's by no means perfectly consistent, but there is a strategy there. It just involves really getting the sleep on the Magnemite and the Haunter, 2 Pokemon, in order to make that work. Fortunately, nothing else in the underground is really all that hard, so we get through all these trainers. It took a few trips back to the Pokemon Center, but nothing to write home about. And our Chansey's even trying to evolve into Blissey at this point, but my understanding is the Lucky Punch doesn't work on Blissey, it only works on Chansey, at least in this generation, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But now with that section done, we can just make our way to the top of the tower. I think nothing will be really an issue here other than maybe the final executives. So let's just see how they actually go. Here against the second to last executive, we can even use counter against Acid from the Vileplume, which actually makes these fights pretty darn easy. And we get to the last trainer in this section. Now here against the final executive, we actually don't have any good moves against the Houndour. It's going to resist Hidden Power Dark, and it doesn't have any physical moves to use against us, so we can't go counter strats here, but we do manage to knock it out nice and easy. Coughing's out next. I will go for the counter strats here. It goes Smoke Screen, but fortunately counter doesn't really care about that, so we're able to knock it out in 3 counters nice and easy. Houndoom comes out last. Smog is the only move that it could use that would actually be affected by counter, and I don't think he's going to use that because I think his other moves are stronger. So I'm going to put this one to sleep and then go Hidden Power, knowing that it's really not going to do much here. But if we land enough hits, we should be able to knock this one out. And of course, our whole issue here is that this Houndoom has too much PP, so we can't really PP stall here in order to get it to use just Smog against us. And because we've run out of hidden powers due to the Smoke Screen, we're basically just going to lose until he actually just randomly uses Smog and allows us to win. But now that we've gotten this Rocket storyline completely finished, we can make our way on to Claire. And I'm predicting that Claire is not going to be super easy, at least not with our current moveset. We may need to adjust a little bit if we're actually going to be able to get through her team. The real question is, do we outspeed the Dragonairs? If we do, then we can obviously use sleep strats there. But if we can't, then we may really need a stronger move of some sort in order to get through that one. We can see that at this point, we can get just short of the number of casino coins that we would actually need to buy one of these TMs here, and I haven't been diving through every cave in order to get every single available item, so it is probably reasonable that if we do need a TM, like for example TM14 Blizzard, we could get it at this point in order to replace, for example, Hidden Power Dark. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind as I go through this next section, just as a possibility if I'm running out of other options. I will also take this opportunity in order to complete the Sprout Tower, just so that I have Flash later on. I will not be using Chansey for this though. It will be Gyarados, named Fat Chance, who will be running through this section and just completely destroying all these Pokemon. I consider this legitimate as a solo challenge just because of the fact that I'm not getting the XP here, but you know, you can yell at me in the comments about it. In fact, the rival is still back here fighting against the Sage, so you know, it seems pretty legit to me. You know, he's only way over leveled at this point with his own team to fight here, so I think coming here with Gyarados to beat up the Sage is perfectly legitimate. And of course, with Thrash from Gyarados, these are all easy one hits anyway, so it's never like this is difficult, but I just want to get Flash so that I can actually use it, because I have not yet remembered all the routes through all the darkened sections of the game, and it's just much easier to do this and move on. We could technically just give Flash to a Pokemon. You could always trade to a different cartridge or use Pokemon Stadium 2 in order to just teach these moves anyway, but here we will slap Flash onto our Abra, and we will give Whirlpool to the Gyarados. We'll also teach it Waterfall once we pick it up, and that will be all of our HM Pokemon for this run. And I figure while I have the chance, I'll just come to the Whirl Islands and pick up a bunch of items that I can sell for money, and that way we should actually be able to afford another TM if we need it. And sure enough, after taking that quick little detour, we actually do have enough coins that we can come and buy one Game Corner TM if we need it. So basically, even going back to the main minimum battle series, once we get to Claire, it's actually reasonable to get one of these TMs without needing to do anything crazy, just picking up items and selling them. So we'll probably allow one of these TMs per Pokemon once we get to that point. I'll still be considering Pokemon that have two of these moves as being in the unreasonable TMs category because of the fact that it's not reasonable to get that much money at this point in the game. But still, we've reached a point where at least legitimately we can get a TM there if we need it, and it's very, very possible that something like Blizzard is the key for us to get through, in this case against Claire, since theoretically Blizzard will do a lot more damage than anything else that we've got on our moveset at this point. We can also get the TM for Rest here in the Ice Path, and that could theoretically be a strategy, but I honestly don't think we will survive enough turns to ever use Rest, which is why Soft Boiled really is the better play with a Chansey. It will be something to keep in mind when we get here with other Pokemon though in the minimum battle series, because there could be spots where Rest in order to get rid of status and heal up is a solution to a tough fight. But anyway, for now we have made it to Claire's gym. Let's just see how it goes against these trainers. I'll comment if any are actually difficult, but otherwise we'll go straight to Claire herself. And as we make it to the last trainer before Claire, the biggest thing that I've noticed is that Hidden Power Dark is not one-shotting anything here. Even with a crit, we're not going to one-shot the Dratini based on my experience so far, at least not all of the time. The advantage that we have is that we're in the fast level up group, so already at level 47, we're actually outspeeding here against a lot of Pokemon, in spite of the fact that Chansey's not exactly known for its speed. And that suggests that we at least have a chance here with our current moveset, but I think there's also a pretty high chance that we're going to need to upgrade somehow in order to get through this. Still, if we can get through here with Hidden Power Dark, it will be a good move against Will, which is why I'm going to try with Hidden Power Dark to begin with, and then we'll think about other movesets later on. So Claire, attempt number 1. We are faster than the Dragonair. I'm going to try to sing to put it to sleep, and then let's just see what the range looks like with Hidden Power. It is looking like a 4-hit KO with this move without a crit. Hopefully the Lucky Punch will reduce the number of hits it takes somewhere in here. We get Thunder Waved by the second Dragonair, and it is using Slam, so we could use this as a counter spot, in which case that will do massive damage, and then we just need to land another Hidden Power to knock that Pokemon out. We're going to need to put a Pokemon to sleep though if we're going to be able to safely set up Soft Boiled here. Still, we get the third Dragonair to go to sleep, allowing us to basically heal up, and then once it wakes up, I'm just going to sit here and spam the counter so that if it does hit Slam, I'm going to be able to do massive damage back, and then we just need one Hidden Power off of that, and we're able to knock that Pokemon out. Now, as far as this Seadra goes, it knows Hyper Beam. I'm not sure if it will use it here. Go Surf instead. Probably depends on the exact damage ranges. So I'm going to put it to sleep and I'm going to heal up with my Soft Boiled. And then let's go into Hidden Power and just see how much damage we do. We did 20 damage, so this will be a 6-hit KO. It goes Hyper Beam against us here, and then we get a nice crit. So we can see Hyper Beam doesn't like one-shot us by any means. So it's possible that it's just randomizing here, and if that's the case, we could try to counter a Hyper Beam. We get the Hyper Beam there and we counter it, allowing us to just knock out the Kingdra. So we get through Claire on the first attempt without really any issues. We have so much HP that their special moves don't do that much to us. And then yet again, it's about the counter strats here that really make this Pokemon super OP, you know. So taking Gen 1 trash moves seems to actually be the best way to make Chansey an absolute beast in Gen 2, as opposed to giving it the Lucky Punch. I think this is another one like the Farfetch'd run where the held item is really being overshadowed by the moveset. And here the old guys in the Dragon's Den are going to give us a lot of respect for running this Pokemon the way that we have, which basically means that they're going to demand that Claire give us that badge quick. So as much as she doesn't want to give it to us because of how we kind of cheesed her fight, she's going to give us the badge and we can move on to the Elite Four now. And with that, we have a legit chance of getting through Johto at least on minimum battles, which is kind of ridiculous, honestly. I did not predict that this Pokemon would get this far on minimum battles, but it turns out that counter strats are basically enough. But before I actually go to the league, I'm going to backtrack and just get some items because I know that there are things like the Defense Curl TM available, and it might be a good idea to just at least have that in the bag in case we need it. And as usual, this spinner right here causes a couple of resets for me, so I'm just going to have to hope that I can route past her properly. This is basically the reason why I probably will never have a 0 resets run here in GSC, is just purely because of that trainer, if I'm going on minimum battles at least. But now on our way up to the league, there are only a couple fights to take. We've just got the one required trainer before we go into Victory Road, and then rival number 5. So after just collecting all the items here, we're ready for rival number 5. Let's see if we can actually get this one to work. So rival 5 attempt number 1, he leads off with Sneasel, which is faster than us, but it doesn't really know any strong moves. I'm going to see if I can go counter against this Pokemon in order to just knock it out. It starts to set up Fury Cutter, but that's going to allow us to just counter over and over again, taking that Pokemon down. Now we're kind of hoping for Wing Attack here from the Golbat. It goes Confuse Ray instead, but then it goes into the Wing Attack, so we can counter that and get the one-hit KO. We could learn Light Screen at this level, but I'm going to skip that move for now. Magneton is out next, and here we don't really have anything that great. I'm going to try to Sing to prevent the Thunder Wave. Unfortunately, the Sing missed, so we did get Thunder Waved there. But now we can see that it looks like it's going to use Swift against us. So let's just heal up and then see if we can manage to counter it when it wakes up. Sure enough, we do, knocking it out in a single hit. Haunter, we're going to have to go for a Hidden Power Dark here. We get confused and then cursed, which is terrible. That's really not the kind of luck we were looking for here. And now we're just hitting ourselves in confusion over and over again, meaning that we simply lose. Still, I think with a little bit better luck, we could have gotten that one to go. So let's try this again. So against the Sneasel, I'm going to stick with the counter strat, of course. As it goes into Fury Cutter against me, we should be able to just knock it out pretty easily. Once again, I think there's nothing to do but the counter strat on the Golbat. Sure, it can confuse me and I'll hit myself in confusion sometimes, but counter does get the job done. We will not learn Light Screen yet again, and now we're really just hoping to put this Magneton to sleep. Now we can go into Soft Boiled in order to heal up a little bit, and then we're hoping that it will go Swift when it wakes up. Instead, it does go Thunder Wave here, so nothing to do about that. Still, we're going to be able to knock it out with a couple of counters. We get back to the Haunter, where we're going to use Hidden Power Dark to knock that one out. Kadabra, we're also going Hidden Power Dark, since obviously it's not going to use any physical moves against us. It does recover, but we knock it out the next turn. And now we're hoping to put Feraligatr to sleep as it uses a Slash against me. I just didn't have enough HP after the curse. So this one at least looks really, really close. We're going to need an awful lot of luck to actually get this one to go. So this time on Magneton, I'm just going to see what Hidden Power Dark does. It did 16 damage, meaning that this would be a 6-hit KO on the Magneton without crits. So we're hoping that that Lucky Punch will come in to actually help us. Otherwise, we're just going to get paralyzed no matter what we do. Here, this time we get confused by the Haunter instead though, but Hidden Power Dark is not a one-hit KO. So we'll have to go for a Hidden Power Dark here on Kadabra, which we already know is a 2-hitter. And here we're just going to have to heal after we miss a couple times because of the curse damage coming in. Fortunately, Future Sight doesn't do that much to us, so we can, in theory, heal up, but now he disables Soft Boiled, and that's basically the end of this fight, I think. Unless we can manage to survive and counter, which we could not against the Feraligatr. So once again, we're just going to have to really hope that Magneton stays asleep for a lot of turns and that we start critting here. We We get a crit right there, which is going to allow us to knock out Magneton without paralysis this time. And that means when we get to the Haunter, we're actually faster than this Pokemon. We miss Sing turn 1 though and get confused, which means it still manages to curse me in spite of the fact that I was faster here. We do, however, knock that Pokemon out. We can just go for Soft Boiled here on Kadabra in order to just heal up a little bit. Of course, it's going to go Future Sight, but that's just fine. We're going to use our Hidden Power Dark and then just keep using Soft Boiled here against this Pokemon until the Future Sight comes in. It's very funny that we're actually faster than Kadabra here. I'm going to put it to sleep so that I can heal up, hoping that it just stays asleep until I'm basically as close to full health as I can get. It does use Future Sight right there, but I think that's fine. We're going to just go for the Hidden Power now and knock that Pokemon out. And now against Feraligatr, we get hit by Future Sight. It doesn't do that much though, and I'm just hoping to do massive damage with a counter. We got the critical hit slash from Feraligatr that allowed us to counter in one shot, so we do manage to get through Rival 5 on minimum battles. It's not really consistent, but we could have tried other moves there. I was keeping my moveset as it is because I kind of want to have Hidden Power Dark for Will, but we may need to adjust this moveset after that. And for now, I'm just going to buy a whole bunch of full restores as we go here into the league, because who knows, we may need to start grinding levels at some point. And I am going to go back to Kanto just to get access to a Game Corner TM. I'm going to go on the basis that I think that what we're really going to need is Blizzard later on against Lance. And Blizzard overall is pretty good against a lot of the Pokemon that we're going to have troubles with here. So I think it might be the way to go. So with that now in the bag, I'm going to make my way back to the Pokemon League and just see how this goes. First up here, of course, we've got Willy Boy, so let's just see if we can find a way through his Pokemon. So here it really depends a lot on the strategy that he decides to use. Xatu is faster than us and it goes for Psychic, and as long as he's going for Psychic, obviously we can't use counter strats. So what I'm going to do instead is put this Pokemon to sleep. I'm going to try to heal up, and then let's see what our Hidden Power Dark does here. We can see it does about half, so it's going to be a 2-hit KO to get through this Pokemon, but that basically is fine, I think. As long as we can find a way through that first Pokemon, we're basically good to go. I am going to put Jinx to sleep here. We are actually in a speed tie after the level up, and this seems like a perfectly fine place to heal up and then go for our Hidden Power again. This looks like a 3-hit potentially on this Pokemon, but we do manage to knock it out nice and easy. Exeggutor comes out. I'm going to try to avoid things like Leech Seed here, which is why I'm going to go for Sing on this one. It's going Egg Bomb though, and that might be perfectly fine here because in theory we can counter Egg Bomb. And sure enough, we just one-shot after the counter. We can put Slowbro to sleep so that we can heal up right here. It goes for Curse, but I'll just use Hidden Power Dark for now. We get a nice critical hit there, and that allows us with 2 crits to just knock that Pokemon out. Thank you to the Lucky Punch right there. And now against the final Xatu, I think there's nothing to do other than just go for the Hidden Power Dark, and it's not like Psychic's gonna take us down, so we take down Will nice and easy there. It wasn't like a fast run, we weren't like one-shotting anything, but we got through perfectly fine. I think we're good to go. And with that done, it's now time for Koga. Let's see what this one looks like. Do we need to add new moves? I'm not sure, but let's test it out. So Koga leads off with Ariados, of course, which is quite slow. So I'm just going to put this Pokemon to sleep and then go into the Hidden Power Dark, just because I don't really want to allow it to set up a bunch of double teams and it doesn't have any physical moves. So I think this is the way to go. Venomoth is out next. I think it's very likely it goes Toxic or something on us. So I'm going to put that one to sleep as well and go into the Hidden Power Dark. This looks like it might be a 5-hit KO without a crit. We actually get the 4-hitter after the crit as it wakes up. Fortress is out next. Once again, I want to Sing on this Pokemon. It's going for Swift though, and Swift with a critical hit allows us to just one-shot with a counter. Muck is out next, and we know that it's going to do a lot of damage with any of its moves when it does hit, so I'm going to heal up right here. It goes Sludge Bomb, which does just massive damage after a crit. So I'm just going to try to counter that move as he just continues to use Minimize. And after the Counter, we just one-shot. Fortunately, Counter does not seem to care about the defense or evasion of the opponent. So we do get knocked out by Crobat there, but this is clearly a winnable fight. So in the next attempt, when I do get back to Fortress, I'm not going to mess around. I'm just going to go for Counter here. And after 2 Swifts, we can just knock that Pokemon out. Against the Muck, I am still going to go for Sing here and try to put this one to sleep, especially because we get Toxic this time. That is not ideal. We finally get it to sleep with the Sing, and we can heal up with some Soft Boils, but the Toxic is really a major issue. I'm pretty much stuck waiting for Muck to wake up now, so that hopefully I can counter its Sludge Bomb and knock it out. And unfortunately, Toxic just does way too much damage after Muck stays asleep for 7 turns that I cannot wake up and return the damage. So that's another issue that could happen in this one, is getting Toxic against us. This time we get Toxic from the Venomoth instead, but it's basically the same issue. We're going to have to get a lot of luck here in order to get through, and Fortress is just going to love to use Protect here when we've got Toxic on. So we're basically losing this attempt. Now, if I recall, he's basically most likely to use Toxic on the first turn with the Pokemon, and then much less likely to use it on subsequent turns. So I think it's perfectly fine here to just reset for a little bit of luck where we actually hit our Sings here, and then we should have a better chance of getting through. And of course, whenever we miss here against the Muck, I'm just simply going to use Counter the next turn. And here Crobat is going for some double teams on us, and then he Wing Attacks us down. So the fact that he didn't use Wing Attack initially is the whole reason why I couldn't counter him. The whole issue of Counter is actually needing your opponent to use moves that you can counter. Otherwise, you can get into some bad spots here. So I think anytime they wake up and use Toxic against us or something, we just have to auto reset. It is also worth noting that Toxic can miss. So we got a Toxic miss this time from the Venomoth when it woke up, and then just put it back to sleep. And that can be a strat for getting through here as well. We don't just need to not get Toxic, we can also get that 15% chance for it to miss. And here against Muck, as long as it actually uses Sludge Bomb on us, we're basically good. And now against the final Crobat, I'm actually going to just see what Hidden Power does here. Did decent enough damage with a crit there. He goes Wing Attack, and then we counter him. So just like that, we do manage to get through Koga. It ended up taking 7 attempts to get that fight to go, but we are able to win on minimum battles. It's basically just about resetting when you get hit by Toxic. Definitely not perfectly consistent, but it makes me wonder just if we threw on a different move that did more damage, how we would do there. Still, for now, we have made it now to Bruno. And I think this is going to be a perfectly easy fight because everything's going to use physical moves here. So as long as we're not getting one hit KO'd, and I think we're going to outspeed a lot of these Pokemon, we should be able to use Sleep plus counter strats to get through, but let's just see. So first up, of course, we've got the Hitmontop. I expect it to go for a physical move here. It goes for Dig. That's perfectly fine. We're just going to counter that move, and it's going to take 2 more turns to knock this Pokemon out, but we do take it down nice and easy. Hitmonlee is out next. We're faster than this Pokemon. Goes for the massive high jump kick, though, which critical hits to one-shot us. So we have to avoid the crits here, that's for sure. And without a crit, we do actually manage to survive and knock out Hitmonlee. Out next comes the Hitmonchan, which I think is going to go Mach Punch here. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to survive that move. So it's pretty clear that we're going to need to heal up damage somehow here. There are a couple of ideas that I have. Of course, here after taking damage from 2 hits from Hitmontop, we can just Sing here on Hitmonlee in order to heal up. And now we can even go for Hidden Power here. It's not like it's going to do massive damage against Hitmonlee, but that's not really the point. Now he does hit a high jump kick when he wakes up, so I'm going to put him back to sleep and heal up yet again. But I'm actually going to avoid the counter strats right here. I'm going to go for the Hidden Power strat because of the fact that we know we're going to get Mach Punched by the Hitmonchan immediately after this. So we're going to have to keep this Hitmonlee asleep for enough turns that we're able to basically heal back up. And then we're just hoping for enough crits that even with resistance, we can knock this one out with our Hidden Power Dark. We've managed to land like 4 Sings on this Hitmonlee. And finally, Hidden Power Dark will do the job. So now it's back to the counter strat on Hitmonchan. It Mach Punches, and then we just destroy that Pokemon. But Champ is out next. It's quite slow slow. So while I know cross chop will basically end me, my whole plan was to put it to sleep and then hopefully be able to knock it out after that. But what we can see for sure is that Hidden Power Dark is not pulling its weight anymore. We definitely need a new move at this point if we're going to be able to get through. And as far as special moves that we have available, we've got Blizzard, we've got Icy Wind, and we've got Solar Beam. Obviously, I expect Blizzard to be the most useful in this section, but we could also go for a physical move like Headbutt because we're faster than these Pokemon, though it will use our paltry physical attack stat. And it's not like a move like Solar Beam is out of the question given that we have sleep strats here. So I'm actually going to go for Solar Beam here first, knowing that I will replace it later on. But let's just see how this goes if we replace Hidden Power with Solar Beam here. So first up, against the Hitmontop, we know that we're faster than this Pokemon. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try to sing to put this one to sleep. Once it's asleep, we can simply use a Soft Boiled in order to heal up. And then the whole reason I wanted to sleep is because if I use Solar Beam, I don't want it to be able to use Detect in order to avoid the damage the next turn. You know, like it will simply detect in order to avoid damage in that situation. So we do manage to take that Pokemon down. Out next, we've got the Hitmonlee. It goes double kick here and gets a critical hit, so we simply go down. We can kind of see the problem. Solar Beam, in spite of the fact that it is quite strong, simply does not do that much damage to the Hitmons given their higher special defense. I still think I can get this to go though, so let's just test it a little more. So against this Hitmontop, I'm just going to stick with the counter strat because we already know that it will work against these digs, which is all it's going to go for here. Against the Hitmonlee, I am going to try to put it to sleep, and we've just got to hope to not get a critical hit high jump kick there. And the real danger there is that we've got to get a long sleep on the Hitmonlee if we're going to get through it. Still, we do manage to knock out Hitmonlee with full health on the next attempt. We're obviously going counter against the Mach Punch here from Hitmonchan. There's nothing to do there other than Mach Punch. We put the Machamp to sleep this time so I can heal up, and now I want to see if I can survive the Cross Chop, and I cannot. I get just one shot there. Granted, this Pokemon has just such amazing attack that makes sense for it to completely destroy me with a super strong move, so we're gonna need to go with something else there in order to get through that Machamp. Now, if we could get Psychic at this point in the game, we would obviously be in much better shape with this Chansey. It's the fact that we're stuck using weaker moves that are, you know, either a trade-off between Solar Beam being perfectly accurate, Icy Wind being not very strong, and Blizzard being inaccurate that make this one actually kind of difficult. Now, it turns out that we can actually counter a high jump kick from full health and a Mach Punch immediately after that and knock out those two Pokemon even without going for Solar Beam strats or Sing strats. However, we're on very low health as we go to Machamp, so we're going to have to put this Pokemon to sleep to have any shot or get, you know, like a miss from Cross Chop in order to have a chance here. So with that, we can get to the Machamp pretty reliably here, and it's just again a matter of being able to get healed up here and hopefully not getting hit too many times. And when it crits with a Cross Chop, there's just nothing that we can do. Now, we can actually survive a Cross Chop here from full health, so it's probably a range, but we're going to need to get the luck to actually be using counter at that point if we're actually going to get through this. But now, armed with that knowledge, I'm actually more likely to just sit here and reset on this because it really just comes down to getting the move Cross Chop on the right turn. So we finally get a run where we managed to put Machamp to sleep and Soft Boiled back to full health, which you might say is a little bit luck based. You have to land the Sing here. There are two Sings you need. You need one on the Hitmonlee in order to heal up and one on the Machamp to heal up. You can actually miss once on the Hitmonlee and get a second crack at it as long as it doesn't get a critical hit. But here against the Machamp, it's all or nothing. And then even then, you've got to hope to get that low damage roll so that you can actually one-shot here with the counter. So this is looking a little bit luck based. I do think it will eventually go though. It's just kind of bad luck that we got there to the Machamp and put it to sleep only for it to then not give us the range that we needed. Based on all my testing here, like we've been to that Machamp multiple times and almost every time the Sing has simply missed, which is why I'm taking so many resets. Sing is very much an all or nothing strategy here. The real question is just how often do we get the range here on the Machamp Machamp. I've gotten back to full health again, so I'm going to try this and just see if we can manage to survive this time. We do, which means counter's going to one-shot there. That brings us to the final Onix. I'm not sure Onix has enough power to one-shot us, so I'm going to go soft-boiled in order to heal up. Earthquake did decent damage, but not enough that we're really scared after we used soft-boiled a couple times. And now I think we just Solar Beam and win. Like Sandstorm's doing some damage, but Solar Beam just one-shots. Even on low health, you don't need to worry about a Sing on that final Onix. It's only the Hitmonlee and the Machamp that you need the Sings to actually land on. Like I said, you can miss one Sing on the Hitmonlee and you're still okay because it will not knock you out the next turn without a crit. So very, very borderline, but we do eventually get that one to go. So I guess technically that was fine. And now we've made it to Karen. I do not think Solar Beam is the strategy for Karen. I think that that's actually going to be pretty bad. The big issue that we're going to have here, of course, is going to be the Gengar. And I think this is actually a good spot to think about a rollout strat. Essentially, Sing into rollout might be my strategy here. I'm just going to test this out and see. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but that's my idea going into the Karen fight. So Karen attempt number 1, we are of course faster than the Umbreon. So I'm going to Sing right here and now start trying to set up rollout. And we can see with our dismal attack stat, rollout does like nothing here, but it is enough to eventually knock out that Pokemon. Here we can Sing now on the Vileplume. I'm honestly not sure what its strategy would be against me. Like, is this a Pokemon that would be going for Acid here? In which case we could go for the strat of going for counter. But now when we get to this Gengar, I mean, it's basically going to curse us, I think, and I don't think there's anything we can do about that. So we pretty much just have to put this Pokemon to sleep and then pray that rollout can build up enough. We do not quite manage to knock out the Gengar. We're down to 1 HP as Murkrow comes out and it just quick attacks us down. So clearly that was not enough. We could think about a defense curl rollout strat here. I'm not sure if that's going to be the play though. Let's just see what Vileplume's strategy is against us. Of course, it goes Stun Spore and now it goes Petal Dance, which is not really what I wanted to see. I was hoping that it would use Acid against me. It seems like it randomizes using Acid, but yeah, we're definitely not getting through with that. So I just wonder if defense curl rollout helps us out here by giving us better ranges. So I am going to try this at least. This is a spot where I am going to save the game before I change my moveset though, because I really just want to see how much better the ranges are with defense curl on. So I am going to forget counter here because I do think I'm going to outspeed against Lance. And if I'm able to build up enough rollout, I may be able to just get through all of his flying type Pokemon. And then once we get to Kanto, we can actually switch to special moves. That's my logic anyway. So I'm going to forget counter here in order to learn the defense curl. Let's see how this goes. Obviously, first things first, we know defense curl will effectively double the power of rollout. So while it's not very strong to begin with, it should be stronger. Here when Umbreon wakes up, I am going to try to put it back to sleep here. We're getting confused and I realized I didn't recover PP coming into this fight. But now at least rollout is building up more. So when we get to the Vileplume, we already have rollout pretty well built up and get the one-hit KO there. And now against the Gengar, I mean, unless it goes Destiny Bond, I think we're going to be fine here. We go rollout turn 1, it does Destiny Bond, and we're going to just get wrecked off of that. Still, we could try to put it to sleep and then roll out there, and that could be our strat. So it seems to me that the better strategy is actually to still put Umbreon to sleep. I'm going to reset anytime I get a Sand Attack here. Anything other than Sand Attack, I'm basically fine, but we do have to prevent the accuracy drops here if we're going to have a shot. But basically against the Umbreon, I'm actually going to skip using defense curl at this point. So I'm going to reset anytime I get a Sand Attack here from this first Umbreon. But as soon as I do get it to sleep, I'm actually going to put off using defense curl. I'm just going to go straight into rollout on this Pokemon because I don't want to build up the rollout too much before I get to the Vileplume. It is a little bit more random given that we're trying to reset anytime we get a Sand Attack. But I think if we can get through the Umbreon without a Sand Attack, which we've seen happen before, then we can set up the defense curl on the Vileplume and get our damage to build up faster after that. And that will be the way that we could have a nice built up rollout by the time that we get to the Gengar, so that at least after it uses Curse, we'll be able to knock it out the next turn. So basically here I'm going to put Vileplume to sleep, now go Defense Curl. The fact that it wakes up immediately and paralyzes me, I also think is a reset. We need not to get that kind of luck in that fight against that Pokemon. So we're asking for a little bit of luck here, specifically with Sing actually hitting. We are faster than all of these Pokemon other than the Gengar, so I'm pretty sure that as long as we're not in the position of, you know, missing Sing every single time, we should be able to actually get this to go. 55% accuracy is pretty terrible, but it's honestly, I think, the best shot that we've got here. This time we get through Vileplume with no Stun Spore. We get cursed by Gengar, but we hit it with Rollout. We've still got one more turn as the Murkrow comes out and gets completely destroyed, and that brings out Houndoom, which is only using special moves. We've got high special defense, so I think we have a chance here. We go for the Rollout, we get a nice critical hit the first turn. Here it burns us, and then we miss the Rollout though, and that might be game over on us. I'm going to have to use Soft Boiled to heal up. Obviously, the fact that this Pokemon is only using special moves is a huge advantage for us, but it's kind of got us in this healing loop with its Flamethrower plus the burn plus Curse. We finally get a Pursuit so that we can heal up a little bit more, but we really want to see Pursuit here. We run out of Soft Boileds, of course, and that's basically the end of this one, but I think it really just came down to the burn plus the fact that we got the miss from Rollout. No Rollout miss there, and we win. So this time we have our last turn of Rollout on the Gengar, which means we're going to have to set up here again against Murkrow. Still, we outspeed. We do good damage with the first Rollout. We hit the second Rollout to knock that Pokemon out. Out comes the Houndoom, goes Flamethrower, we go Rollout, and we knock it out in a single hit. So clearly this is possible with the Defense Curl Rollout strat. You actually don't want to set up Defense Curl on the Umbreon though. You have to save it for the Vileplume, and you need to put those first two Pokemon to sleep to have a shot there. But the strategy ultimately does work on minimum battles here, which means we're coming into the Lance fight now at level 54 with this Pokemon. On minimum battles, no rare candies used. It's of course due to that fast level up group, but it makes me wonder what level we would come in here if we had the Lucky Egg instead of the Lucky Punch. Honestly, like, Lucky Punch has come in clutch a few times with critical hits, but most of the time it's just been our strategy that's been working. Still, we're 2 Lance. We've got a great move for flying type Pokemon in theory, as long as we can build up. I think we're going to be faster than most of his team, so this might work. Let's get into it and find out. So Lance attempt number 1. We're faster than Gyarados. I'm putting this Pokemon to sleep immediately. I'm going to set up the Defense Curls. I'm going to set up all of the Defense Curls because we know that there's going to be some Hyper Beams here, and I want to make sure that we take as little damage from those physical moves as possible. After we set up the Defense Curls, I'm going to put this Gyarados back to sleep and go into Rollout. We missed the second Rollout, unfortunately, but it looks like we're going to be able to knock this one out in just a few hits. Flail doesn't do that much, so we managed to get through there. We're faster than the first Dragonite, but it does manage to hit us with a Thunder Wave. We still knock it out with 2 Rollouts though. That brings out the next Dragonite, and we miss a turn due to our paralysis. So we're going to have to put this Pokemon to sleep. We're going to use Soft Boiled here in order to heal up, and then it's back to the Rollout strat if we can ever actually manage a hit. And we're in this kind of weird situation where we're not taking that much damage from anything, but because we keep missing turns due to being paralyzed, it's actually a lot more difficult to get through here than you might initially expect. Still, we managed to get through Aerodactyl. We're to Charizard. It goes Flamethrower. We hit Rollout and one-shot that Pokemon. We're to the final Dragonite. In spite of the fact that we're paralyzed, it gets us down to 1 HP, and Rollout knocks it out. We take down Lance on the first attempt with the Defense Curl Rollout Fat Chansey on minimum battles. Are you kidding me? But let's be really, really honest. This section does not seem to be about the lucky egg so much as it is about the massive HP of this Pokemon. Obviously, setting up Defense Curl hardcore on that Lance fight was a good strategy because it allowed us to tank quite a few physical hits like Ancient Power and Hyper Beam there. And like 90% of this run was more about counter strats than it was about our normal damage dealing moves that could even get crits. So honestly, I don't know. Maybe in Kanto we'll start to see the crits matter, but up to this point, no, it's all about counter strats and a little bit of defense curl rollout strats that actually made this one go. Still, it's kind of cool to see a Chansey manage to beat all of Kanto on minimum battles, especially considering the moveset that we gave at the beginning. Was it always pretty? No, we ended up with like nearly 100 resets in total there. Don't worry about those optional battles. Those are when I went back to the Sprout Tower and let Gyarados fight all the trainers to get the HM5. And yeah, I'm just not sure how this actually stacks up compared to other Pokemon, but hey, I mean, we did manage to beat Lance without rare candies. So in theory, we could say this Chansey was better than Marowak with the Thick Club, kind of? I don't know, but it may be a situation where it completely breaks down here now that we get into Kanto. I'm not sure. I'm going to stick with Defense Curl rollout for a minute though, just because I find it kind of hilarious, but we're also going to get access to a bunch of special moves here. And now in Kanto, I think we can go straight to Lieutenant Surge. We're not really scared of his electric type moves, and I don't think his Pokemon hits hard enough physically for us to really be scared here either. So let's just get into this and find out if the rollout strats are enough. So Lieutenant Surge leads off with his Raichu. Of course, it does no Thunder Wave, but we're faster than this Pokemon, so we can simply put it to sleep. Defense Curl, he misses the Thunder Wave. Now we'll go into rollout. He's gonna stick with Thunder Wave here, but it's not like Thunder does that much, so we knock that one out in 3 hits. We get the double team from Electrode, but still manage to one-shot there. Magneton is where we finally get our miss, and that's something that we can't really do too much about. We're just going to have to build up the rollout again here on this Pokemon, but it's not like he's doing massive damage to us with his moves, so in theory at least, we can kind of stall him out and then just use some soft boileds to recover. We will not learn Double Edge here as we level up, instead sticking with our rollout strat, and he does manage to get us in a range where he can self-destruct and get us down to 1 HP, so unfortunately we do lose that first attempt, but I think it's just about the paralysis. If we don't get paralyzed, I think we're good to go here. And I think that's just a matter of Sing actually landing and then getting a good number of turns for his Pokemon to be asleep. Then we should just be faster and be able to basically one-shot several Pokemon and then set up the whole thing again. Ideally, we'd really like to be here against this Raichu with a Paralyzed Cure Berry rather than with the Lucky Punch though, because that would probably make this one much more consistent. This time we do manage to get through the first Raichu without any paralysis though, only to have the Electrode set up like a ridiculous number of double teams. Still, we do manage to take that one down. We get to the Magneton. He's also going for double team, but that's perfectly fine. We still knock it out with the rollout. And here, without any paralysis, we're able to easily knock out the Electrode. We've made it to the final Electabuzz, which basically knows nothing. He goes Light Screen and then Thunder, and we simply knock him out after that. So yeah, Lieutenant Surge is just about not getting paralyzed there and being able to actually hit the rollouts. Once you get that, he's actually a cakewalk. And now, because of our massive special defense, I'm actually expecting Erica and Sabrina to be quite easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and take on these gym leaders right now. We'll also pick up the Psychic TM while we're right here. We'll also get access to Dream Eater later on. That could be a very good strat with this Pokemon. But for now, we'll simply go straight to Sabrina and see if we can manage to beat her. So Sabrina, attempt number 1, of course, she leads off with Espeon, which is faster than us. It misses a Sand Attack though. We can now go for Defense Curl and roll out after getting this Pokemon to sleep. Still going to take quite a few turns to knock it out, but 3 hits after 1 crit there. We can then roll out to one-shot the Mr. Mime. Alakazam comes out and goes Reflect, but rollout still one-shots with a crit there. so we beat Sabrina super easily on the first attempt. Turns out that defense curl rollout does work with this Chansey as long as you're willing to take a little bit of luck here. And after destroying the randos in the gym, we're ready to take on Erica. Let's just see how she goes. So here we're just going to set up defense curl and rollout on the Tangela. We get a miss from rollout, which is kind of unfortunate, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out in 4 turns eventually. Jumpluff gets completely destroyed by the rollout, of course. Victory Bell's out next. It's a 1-hit, and that brings out Blossom, where we're still using rollout, and we destroy it in a single hit. So Erica never had a chance against our fat Chance. So now I think I'm going to go and make my way to Misty, just based on the fact that, well, yes, she has a Quagsire that will resist our rollout. She's also basically another trainer that's going to use special moves against us, so she's not as scary as some of these others like Brock coming up. And I think that makes this a pretty reasonable spot to simply go and try to take her on. We do have to get through this one random Machamp trainer though, so let's see how this goes when, it could be using Karate Chop against us. Definitely a spot that makes us wish that we still had counter on our moveset here. Still, rollout does the job, allowing us to beat that Machamp nice and easy, and we're ready to go to the power plant. And after doing the whole machine part quest, I'm just going to take on all these randos up north on the way to crash Misty's little date, and I think we're just going to be rolling out all over these Pokemon. So we can crash Misty's date now with no issues going through that section. But one thing to note is that we're already at level 61, and when we were doing previous runs here on minimum battles, a medium fast level up Pokemon like Pikachu or Marowak gets to red at level 60 on minimum battles. A fast level up Pokemon like this is already way ahead in terms of levels, because we haven't even defeated like half of the Kanto gym leaders and we're already at a higher level. So that gives me a lot of confidence that we're at least going to be better against red at the end, and it's just going to be a matter of what moveset we need to use there in order to get the win. For now though, we're going to stick with our moveset as it is as we go into the Misty fight. So Misty attempt number 1, she goes for Surf with her Golduck, which isn't really scary for us given the fact that we are obviously a special tank. Still, we're going to put that Pokemon to sleep and now set up our defense curl. I think we can go into rollout just because of the fact that, at least in theory, we shouldn't take that much damage here, and thus we should be able to just heal up with soft boiled if we need to, and then we can simply roll out to take that Pokemon down. Quagsire comes out next. Of course, it is a ground type Pokemon, so it's going to take a lot less damage from rollout, but we still knock it out in 3 hits. Rollout completely destroys the Lapras. Starmie comes out. We miss the rollout apparently, so now we're going to have to start setting it up again. But Starmie is not super strong defensively. It does manage to confuse us though. That was a good strategy there by Misty. So I'm going to use soft boiled again. Starmie recovers, and clearly this is just a matter of not hitting ourselves in confusion and hitting the rollout, and then we simply win, and Misty has no chance against us. So that was nice and easy. Now we can move on in the game. I think rollout's not going to be that great against Brock, so I think we're going to need to change up our moveset a little bit there. Honestly, at some point I expect Dream Eater to come in on the moveset, just because I expect that to actually be a really good move for this Pokemon. Like, I know a lot of people don't like Dream Eater because it's reliant on getting sleep on your opponents, but there are so many spots where we're going to want to put sleep on opponents anyway, and Dream Eater allows us to heal up while using our higher special attack stat, and I think that is what makes the difference and actually makes it a viable strategy here. Still, it's probably more consistent to go for Psychic on anything other than basically red and blue, so I think that's the strategy I'm going to use here on Brock. But before I even go mess with him, I'm going to go and take on Blaine and Janine, just because I think for those trainers the rollout strat might be perfectly fine. So we'll just come and talk to Blue about how we have a fat chance of actually beating him with our current moveset, and he's going to run off to the gym to prepare for rollout strats. Little does he know, we're going to definitely use something different against him. But for now, let's just show Blaney Boy what happens when a fat chance rolls out all over him. So first up on the Mag Cargo, I'm just going to put this Pokemon to sleep. Then let's set up a defense curl, and we can go into the rollout. It curses, which is not ideal, so I'm going to put it back to sleep just to prevent it from setting up too many curses against us. Then we get a rollout miss, which is really not ideal. Still, we're able to knock it out after that. We get to the Magmar, where rollout just gets a single hit KO there, and Rapidash goes for the Fire Spin, but Fire Spin does not prevent us from moving in this gen, so we simply destroy it after that with another rollout. Turns out, yeah, that was pretty darn easy. So now Janine time, and again, it's time to make a decision what to do. I'm going to try to stick with my moveset as is, though. Let's just see if we can manage to get through. So Janine attempt number 1, we're already faster than her Crobat, and at that point, I mean, I don't see what she's going to be able to do against us. You know, like, yes, she does confuse us and we're missing a bunch of Sings, but I think that's the whole point, is just that we need to land Sing, soft-boiled here, and then Defense Curl into rollout, and then we're just going to sweep through the team pretty much. The confusion could be a complicating factor, but honestly, it's not going to be too bad just because our Pokemon are so weak that I don't expect them to be able to get good ranges against us. We do get Toxic here from the Wheezing, which is kind of bad, and we're going to have to build up the rollout here in order to knock this Pokemon out. We do, however, the next Wheezing comes out and gets one shot, Ariados comes out and gets one shot, and that brings out the Venomoth. We go for rollout, it does about half, we take some toxic damage, but it's not enough. Janine, even with the toxic strats, cannot stop the rollout, and she just gets completely wrecked. We obviously have a bunch of full restores in the bag anyway, so it's not like we have to run around with the flashing lights, and we're ready to go back to Brocky Boy. Now, the only issue in going to Pewter City is that there's one random trainer that is a set spinner, so he's one that you have to time out to get past, and I always run into him. So this is another spot where I expect some resets that have nothing to do with battle, just to do with trying to get past this guy and his Beedrills. We actually get it on the first attempt though, so very nice. We're on to Brocky Boy. Let's see if rollout is enough or if we're going to need something different. So the main thing we know is that basically everything here is going to be using physical attacks against us. So it's a spot where I think the best strategy against Brock is to lead off with just a bunch of defense curls. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this first Graveler to sleep. I'm going to set up all 6 defense curls right here, just hoping to reduce the amount of damage that he can do when he does use physical moves against me. And then once I get all of those set up, now we will think about going into the rollout strats. Put this Graveler back to sleep, and let's just see what rollout does. Like, nothing. He's also using rollout against us. The difference is we can break up his rollouts by putting him to sleep, but now he goes defense curl himself into rollout, and that actually is kind of bad because it's obviously going to reduce the damage of our rollout, and that's where it seems like the rollout strat just kind of breaks down. He's got a resistance to our move plus really high defense, and we're just not managing to land enough hits here. We do manage to knock it out eventually though. Rhyhorn comes out and gets one shot by a rollout. Now we've made it to Amistar, which is going Surf. We really want to put this Pokemon to sleep so that we can just heal up safely here. Not that its moves are doing massive damage to us by any means, but this is a good spot to use a couple of soft boileds in order to heal up, and then it's going to be back to the rollout. Fortunately, Rock, for whatever reason, does not resist Rock, so this is perfectly fine to just take this Pokemon down with 3 rollouts. A couple of those were crits. Now we get to the Onix, it goes Sandstorm, but we're able to roll out to knock that Pokemon out. Sandstorm is going to do decent damage here though, so I'm going to put Kabutops to sleep and then heal up before I go into my rollout spam again. Here he's going Surf because of the fact that we have such high defense, and we simply knock him out with rollout. So turns out that rollout is enough to get through Brock. It was really tedious on the first Graveler, but it does actually work for that fight. And so now with no moveset changes, I'm at least going to try Blue one time and just see if I can manage to beat him. And we're at level 64 right now, so we're definitely getting some good levels here. Might be level 65 going into Red, meaning we could get up to level 75 with rare candies. So let's just see how this goes against Red and see if we can get the victory. So first off, of course, he leads off with Pidgeot. I put this Pokemon to sleep. I'm in a speed tie here. And this is another one where I think he's got enough physical attackers that setting up all the defense curls makes a lot of sense. He mirror moves to also use defense curl, which is, I guess, kind of fine. Then his wing attack does basically nothing. We go for rollout, and now he mirror moves rollout on us. However, he gets a miss from rollout, so he has to stop using it, and then we knock that Pokemon out. Out comes Alakazam. It goes Psychic, but that really didn't do that much. and we can go back into our rollout spam here. We got a couple rollout misses, unfortunately. He recovers, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Rhydon is out next. Rollout doesn't do that much, and then he earthquakes us down just because we took way too much damage from that Alakazam. Just too many misses there on that Pokemon. So if we don't get the misses on Alakazam, I think we're good to go. So this time we get to Alakazam with really good health. It goes for Reflect and then Recover after the rollout, but we're doing massive damage here. So we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Rhydon comes out, and of course it's slower than us. So I'm going to try to put this Pokemon to sleep here. Not that its moves are going to do massive damage to us, but still we'd prefer to have as many turns as possible to knock this Pokemon out. And the rollout obviously is going to have to build up quite a bit here in order to do even reasonable damage to the Rhydon. It's definitely using the fact that Sandstorm does chip damage based on our level. And then he swaps to Gyarados, which just allows us to one-shot that Pokemon. So I guess good job, kind of. We're going to put this Rhydon back to sleep here and then use Soft Boiled once again in order to heal up. And once we're back on pretty decent health, I'm going to go back into the rollouts here, knowing that I need to build them up. He sets up Sandstorm again, and then we get a rollout miss, which is really not ideal. So we're going to have to put him to sleep again, and this is just super tedious against these rock ground types, having to repeatedly set everything up. Still, we're getting so close to knocking this Pokemon out that I think we're going to be able to get it right there. Very nice. Exeggutor comes out, and we hit the rollout and get the one-hit KO just because it's so built up. And Arcanine comes out, it goes Flamethrower. We hit the rollout, and that is the end of Blue. So it only takes a couple attempts to beat Blue with the rollout strat with our Chansey. And it's all about the fact that Defense Curl is such a good move on this Pokemon. The fact that we're able to actually get our defense to be serviceable at that point by 4xing it means that we're effectively a complete tank against damage. I mean, what are they going to do? We already have really good special defense, and then we're boosting our defense enough to actually make it serviceable. Like, they can't really do anything to us at that point. So with that done, we are now ready to move on to Red. He is the only trainer left in the game. I'm going to pick up a few things, including TM42 for Dream Eater. I've mentioned it a few times, but that is going to be one of my go-to strats if I have trouble here against Red, just because we can regain HP in the middle of the fight that way. And then after picking up one rare candy here on this section, we're ready to get into that fight. Coming in at level 65, which means level 75 after we use the 10 rare candies. I'm going to try at my current level just to see, but it's highly likely the rare candies will be required here. Still, it's going to be fun to see if we can actually complete this one on minimum battles. There have been a few inconsistent spots, absolutely, but everything ultimately was possible. And remember, I'm testing everything in real time. I don't pre-route these, so there's a lot of spots where I honestly don't know, and that's why I'm just resetting to see, okay, maybe if Bruno's Machamp gets a certain range, I do survive Cross Chop, for example. I don't know unless I actually test it out. I don't use damage calculators, so, you know, that's my approach. You can yell and scream in the comments. Nobody said this is optimized, but we've made it to Red on minimum battles, so I'm perfectly happy with this. Even with, 100 resets over there, who cares? We have made it, and we're just here to see if we can get this to go. We've got all 10 rare candies in the bag. We're already at full health, so yeah. Red time. Of course, Red is going to lead off with his Pikachu that has 171 speed. There's nothing we can do about that. He uses Charm turn 1, which really isn't that big of a deal. We're going to put this Pokemon to sleep and then set up some defense curls here. Now, he does use his full restores on this Pokemon, so we're going to have to put it to sleep a few times in order to keep it asleep. But from there, we should be able to get the rest of our setup off. Now, the fact that it charms, it kind of sucks, but remember at least that the defense curl with the rollout is doubling the power of rollout. So we're just basically back to a base power rollout at this point. It turns out to be 4 hits to knock out the Pikachu. Out next comes the Espeon. It goes Psychic, which really doesn't do that much. and we one-shot that Pokemon. Snorlax comes out next. We're going to Sing to put it to sleep. Then we're going to Soft Boil to get our HP back just because I expect Snore to start hitting me. Still, Snore's not doing that much because of the fact that we've set up all those defense curls until he gets a crit, and then it does massive damage. And then he body slams and we weren't able to move after that, so we lose the first attempt. Still, we could slam on the 10 rare candies if we need them. I'm going to try this just a few more times though, because we already know that Pikachu isn't actually guaranteed to use Charm turn 1. It will actually mix between Charm and Thunder, and here it even misses the Charm, which is perfectly fine. And there we just don't want to be paralyzed by the Thunder if we can help it. So I am going to keep putting Pikachu to sleep so that I can finish my setup. But then once all the defense curls are in, let's go for the rollout and just hope we get a good range here. We do manage to knock out Pikachu this time, nice and easy. We get Reflect from Espeon, which sucks, but a critical hit does one-shot there. Out comes the Snorlax, and we're still using rollout, and it does massive damage thanks to a crit, even though Reflect is up. So we knock that Pokemon out this time in a single hit. That brings out the Venusaur. It goes Sunny Day. Now it's going Solar Beam. Obviously a move that's going to do decent damage, but I'm going to take this opportunity to just heal up with Soft Boiled. Reflect finally fades. I misclicked using Defense Curl there, but now we can go into the rollout, and sure, it's not doing massive damage against the Venusaur. It looks like it's going to have to build up all the way to get through, but we do knock that one out. Charizard comes out next. It goes Fire Spin, but obviously rollout's just going to destroy that Pokemon, and that brings out the Blastoise. It's going for Blizzard, trying to freeze me clearly. So I'm going to take this opportunity to just use a Sing. Let's go for Soft Boiled in order to heal up, just in case. And now let's go back into our rollout. We missed the first rollout, we hit the second one, and now it's Rain Dancing against us. Obviously it wants to deal more damage, but we get a critical hit rollout and knock out Red at level 67. So it only takes a few attempts there to get through Red without rare candies. Defense Curl rollout, Sing, Soft Boiled is just such an OP strat altogether. Obviously, the Defense Curl puts in massive work there. Rollout just helps when you have a terrible attack stat. It just allows you to build up the damage. And with Sing and Soft Boiled, it's just a matter of getting the opponents to sleep on the right turns, being able to use that sleep to then set everything up, and Soft Boiled whenever you need to recover HP. But with our stats, we really weren't having trouble there surviving opponents' hits. So interestingly enough, Chansey, once it actually gets to Red, is kind of OP. As long as you're using this sort of strategy, it kind of works. And we could have easily gone for other things, I think. I think we could have gone for, a Psychic strat, a Dream Eater strat. We could have thrown Blizzard on there, etc. But honestly, Chansey outperformed my expectations massively. A lot of it has to do with giving it those Gen 1 moves at the start. Counter, Psywave, Metronome, and Mega Punch. I mean, Mega Punch didn't put in much work, but the other moves did some heavy lifting in the early game, and then Counter was basically the primary strat for most of the run, together with Hidden Power Dark. So honestly, reset for your Hidden Power on this one. Hidden Power Dark is probably the best Hidden Power that you can get with this Pokemon, if I have to be honest. And yeah, we never ended up using Blizzard even though we bought it. So guess that was legit. And yeah. So even with a really suboptimal starting moveset, it was pretty good overall for Johto. And yeah, Counter, that's the real takeaway. Counter is OP, rollout Defense Curl is OP, and Chansey deserves this, but I'm not sure how much work was actually put in by the Lucky Punch. Felt like a lot of spots, the crits were nice, but they didn't really carry this Pokemon by any means. Anyway, tell me what you think down below. We're going to be doing another special item run coming up. We're going to do the Berserker Gene Mewtwo, the one that is not actually accessible in the game, but is in the game's programming, because you cannot encounter a wild Mewtwo in Gen 2, but if you could, it would have the Berserker Gene. We're going to make that a permanent held item on the Pokemon just to see how it goes. I think it's going to be incredibly interesting. So join me for that next time. There will be a minimum battles series in between that and this video. So, a couple weeks, but I will see you then. Appreciate you for being here. Thank you to all the channel members for supporting. Thanks to everybody who watches. You guys are helping me get closer to my goal of being a full-time PokeTuber. So can't thank you enough. Anyway, see you in the next one. Later.